I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies. But we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
1 minute ago, the world witnessed something no one thought they'd ever see. Donald Trump looked directly at UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer and exploded in front of cameras, "You lied to my face!" The room went silent. Every eye locked on Starmer as Trump's words cut through the air like a blade. This wasn't just a disagreement, this was a live political confrontation that stripped away the carefully rehearsed smiles and fake diplomacy. In a single moment, Trump shattered Starmer's image on the global stage and exposed what millions have suspected all along, that the UK's promises of free speech are nothing but empty words. What you're about to hear isn't speculation, it's not spin. It's the raw, unfiltered truth of how one confrontation turned into the most humiliating moment of Keir Starmer's career, and why this might change the future of US-UK relations forever. When Donald Trump sat across from Keir Starmer during their so-called friendly meeting, no one expected fireworks. Starmer believed it would be a simple diplomatic exchange, a photo opportunity to prove to British voters that he could stand tall next to world leaders. He thought it would be another scripted handshake, another meaningless statement about strengthening the special relationship. But Trump had other plans. From the very first minute, Trump's body language told the whole story. He leaned back in his chair, legs spread in a power pose, completely relaxed. Starmer, on the other hand, was tense. His smile seemed forced, his hands fidgeting, as if he already knew trouble was coming. And then it happened. Trump's voice cut through the chatter like a thunderclap. "You lied to my face." So the accusation wasn't whispered in private. It wasn't hidden behind closed doors. Trump said it live in front of cameras with the world watching. Starmer froze. His carefully prepared lines about shared values and mutual respect evaporated instantly. The words hung in the air like a bomb about to detonate, and everyone in the room knew there was no walking it back. Trump wasn't finished. He leaned forward, eyes locked on Starmer, and repeated himself. "You told me your country stands for free speech? But you're locking people up for Facebook posts. That's not free speech. That's a lie." The silence was deafening. For a moment, it looked like Starmer might try to laugh it off, but his face gave him away. The smile slipped, his shoulders stiffened. His eyes darted, searching for an escape that wasn't there. This was no longer a diplomatic meeting. It was a political trial, with Trump as the prosecutor and Starmer as the defendant. Trump laid out the charges one by one. He pointed out the arrests of British citizens for online posts. Not threats, not incitement to violence, but opinions. A grandmother sentenced to prison for sharing anti-immigration articles. A teenager jailed for making memes. Ordinary citizens punished for words that in America wouldn't even raise an eyebrow. "You told me your people had freedom," Trump said, his voice steady and cutting. "But your actions prove the opposite. You lied to me. You lied to your people, and you're lying right now." The weight of those words crushed the room. Reporters shifted in their seats. Advisors whispered nervously. Even Starmer's own team looked uneasy. They knew Trump had cornered him. They knew this was the nightmare scenario they had tried to avoid. Trump refusing to play by the script. Trump refusing to smile for the cameras, Trump refusing to give Starmer an easy win. And what made it worse, the Starmer had no answer. He stumbled through platitudes about balancing safety and liberty, about protecting communities from harmful speech. But the more he talked, the weaker he sounded. Every word was like quicksand, pulling him deeper into the hole Trump had dug. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. Trump, confident and direct, versus Starmer, flustered and defensive. Body language experts later said you could see Starmer shrinking in real time. His posture tightened, his hands clasped together as if he was physically trying to hold himself together. Trump, meanwhile, looked stronger with every passing second. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The power was in the words, and the words were devastating. This was the moment the mask slipped. The polished politician who thought he could outmaneuver Trump with charm and diplomacy suddenly looked exposed, small and powerless. Trump wasn't just calling him out for hypocrisy, he was calling him out for lying, for breaking the very trust that underpins international leadership. And in politics, there's nothing more humiliating than being exposed as a liar in front of the world. What happened next would only make things worse for Starmer, because Trump wasn't finished. He was just getting started. The confrontation didn't end with those 4 words. If anything, "you lied to my face" was only the opening shot. What followed was a systematic dismantling of Keir Starmer's credibility, live for the entire world to see. Trump knew exactly where to strike and he didn't hesitate. He brought receipts, not vague accusations, not whispers from aides, but real examples of British citizens punished for nothing more than speaking their minds online. "Explain this," Trump said sharply, leaning forward, his eyes narrowing on Starmer. A grandmother sentenced to 15 months in prison for sharing Facebook posts. That's not extremism. That's not violence. That's a government silencing dissent. The air in the room thickened. Starmer shifted uncomfortably, his hands gripping the edge of the table. He muttered something about dangerous content and protecting vulnerable communities, but Trump cut him off. "Don't play word games. You're not protecting people, you're protecting yourself from criticism. That's the truth." The cameras caught everything. Every twitch of Starmer's face, every flicker of panic in his eyes. The UK Prime Minister, who walked into the room expecting applause, was being publicly shredded. And Trump wasn't alone. Sitting nearby, Vice President J.D. Vance joined in. His voice was calm, almost cold, but his words were just as brutal. "Prime Minister, your online harms bill doesn't just affect British citizens, it reaches into America. You're trying to control what our people can say on our platforms. That's not just censorship. That's an assault on sovereignty." Starmer's jaw tightened. He tried to push back, insisting that these measures were about safety and responsibility. But his arguments collapsed the moment he said them. Everyone in the room could see it. He was floundering, drowning in the weight of his own contradictions. Just 2 years ago, Starmer had praised free speech in interviews, declaring it a pillar of democracy. Now, confronted with the reality of his government's actions, he was caught in the lie. And Trump wasn't about to let him off the hook. He leaned back in his chair, his voice dropping lower, slower, like a predator circling its prey. "You talk about Churchill, don't you? You called him one of the greatest leaders in your history. You smile when you see his bust on display. But you took his portrait down from your own office because you didn't like his eyes. You attacked his legacy when it was convenient, and now you praise him because you think it will win my approval." The words landed like hammers. Starmer's face flushed red. He forced a smile, but it looked more like a grimace. Trump had cornered him again. This wasn't just about free speech anymore. This was about character, about honesty, about whether the man sitting in front of Trump could be trusted at all. Observers said you could feel the temperature in the room drop. The once confident British Prime Minister now looked like a man exposed, stripped of the armour of political spin. His allies tried to jump in, attempting to steer the conversation back to safer ground. But Trump brushed them aside. His eyes never left Starmer. His words never softened. "You lied to me. You lied to your people. And the worst part is, you don't even believe the words coming out of your own mouth. You don't stand for free speech. You don't stand for honesty. You stand for whatever gets you through the day." The silence that followed was unbearable. Commentators would later describe it as the moment Starmer's credibility cracked on the world stage. In those few seconds, he wasn't just a prime minister defending policy, he was a politician stripped bare, exposed for every contradiction, every broken promise, every false word he'd ever uttered. And yet, Trump wasn't gloating. He didn't need to. His composure, his calm delivery, his refusal to be swayed by diplomatic niceties, it was enough. The contrast told the story better than any soundbite ever could. One leader looked authentic, the other looked like a fraud. What came next would push the humiliation even further, because Trump wasn't just going to accuse Starmer of lying, he was about to prove it. Live in real time with evidence that Starmer himself couldn't deny. Trump wasn't content with calling out hypocrisy. He came armed with facts. with details that even Starmer couldn't wriggle out of. It was the kind of preparation that Starmer never saw coming, the kind that turns a diplomatic meeting into a political ambush. Trump leaned forward, eyes burning with intensity, and delivered the blow. "You say your country defends free speech," Trump said, his voice sharp and deliberate. "But I've got a list of people, real people, sitting in British prisons right now because they posted something online. Not violence, not terrorism, not crime. Just posts. Just opinions." He slapped a folder down on the table, its papers spilling slightly, enough for cameras to catch the headlines. Names, dates, charges, evidence that couldn't be denied. The room gasped. Even seasoned reporters used to the theatrics of politics were stunned. This wasn't bluster. This was documented proof. Trump flipped a page, pointing at one case in particular. Here's a grandmother, 68 years old, locked away for 15 months. Her crime: sharing anti-immigration posts on Facebook. That's it. No violence, no threats, just words. "You call that freedom?" Starmer's lips parted, but no sound came out. His team scrambled, whispering furiously. But Trump pressed on. "Here's another. A teenager. A child, really. 2 years in prison for creating memes." Memes, Prime Minister. Do you even understand how insane that sounds? In America, we call that humour. In your country, you call it a crime. You want to stand there and tell me you're a defender of liberty. Don't insult me. Don't insult the world. The tension was suffocating. Every sentence from Trump was a blade cutting deeper into Starmer's political armour. The British Prime Minister tried to interject, mumbling about context and harmful narratives, but the words fell flat. No one believed him, not even his own allies. And then Trump delivered the knockout line, the kind that would replay endlessly across social media within minutes. "You didn't just lie to me. You lied to your own people. You told them they had freedom. You told them their voices mattered. But the truth is, you'll lock them up the second they say something you don't like. That's not leadership. That's tyranny." Starmer's face drained of colour. His polished exterior crumbled. The cameras caught it all. The twitch of his jaw, the tightening of his fists, the way his eyes flickered toward the exit like a man desperate to escape. But there was no escape. Not here. Not now. Adding to the humiliation, Vice President J.D. Vance chimed in again, his tone cool and surgical. "What's worse, Prime Minister, is the speed with which you protect your own. One of your MPs gets caught posting something controversial, and suddenly the appeals process works like lightning. Ordinary people rot in jail for months. Politicians get a golden ticket out. That's not justice. That's privilege, and you know it." The words landed like cannon fire. The double standard was exposed, live and undeniable. Starmer's carefully crafted narrative about fairness and equality collapsed in real time. The leader, who had built his reputation on integrity, was now cornered, unable to answer the most basic question: why do the rules apply to everyone except him and his allies? Observers said the look on Starmer's face told the entire story. It wasn't the look of a leader standing tall under pressure. It was the look of a man realising he had been caught, exposed and dismantled on the world stage. His legacy, his credibility, even his authority as Prime Minister, all of it looked fragile in that moment. Trump didn't gloat. He didn't need to raise his voice. He simply sat back, confident, composed. The folder of evidence still on the table in plain sight. The silence stretched on, heavy and humiliating. The cameras zoomed in. The footage would be replayed millions of times, dissected by analysts, shared across platforms, burned into the memory of voters on both sides of the Atlantic. And as Starmer sat there, visibly unravelling, Trump's next move would drive the humiliation to an entirely new level. Because the confrontation was no longer just about free speech. It was about trust. It was about honesty, and Trump was about to prove that Starmer's lies ran even deeper than anyone thought. If the folder of evidence was the blade, Trump's next move was the twist. He wasn't just going to expose the arrests, the censorship, the double standards. He was going to strip away the very foundation of Starmer's credibility by showing the world how often the British Prime Minister betrayed his own words. Trump leaned forward again, his voice steady, almost calm, but each word carrying the weight of a hammer. You know what the problem is, Prime Minister. You don't believe anything you say. You'll say one thing in private, another in public, and something entirely different when you think no one's watching. That's not leadership. That's lying. The words echoed, and Trump didn't stop there. He began ticking off the contradictions one by one, each revelation like another nail in Starmer's coffin. 2 years ago, you called me dangerous. You told your voters you'd never welcome me in your country. Now, suddenly, you're beaming as you hand me a letter from King Charles, begging me to come back for a second state visit. Which is it, Prime Minister? Am I dangerous or are you desperate? The cameras captured Starmer's face as the accusation landed. His forced smile faltered. His hands fidgeted again. Trump wasn't making vague accusations when he was quoting Starmer's own words, words that couldn't be denied, words that were now being weaponized against him. And let's not forget Churchill, Trump continued, his eyes narrowing. You praise him now because you think I like him. You call him one of your greatest leaders. You smile at the bust. You use his name when it suits you. But 3 years ago, you pulled his portrait off your wall because you didn't like his eyes. You mocked his legacy when it was fashionable. So tell me, Prime Minister, do you admire Churchill or do you just admire whoever can help you in the moment? Gasps rippled through the room. Starmer's face flushed crimson. He tried to respond, stammering about nuance and changing perspectives. But his words sounded weak, rehearsed, hollow. The mask had slipped. Trump had revealed the truth. Starmer was a man who bent his principles to fit the moment, a leader who abandoned convictions. The second they became inconvenient, even the British press in the room, usually quick to defend their Prime Minister, sat in stunned silence. The narrative was crumbling before their eyes. This wasn't a leader holding his own on the world stage. This was a man being dismantled, piece by piece, his contradictions laid bare for the entire world to see. And Trump wasn't finished. He turned slightly, gesturing toward the cameras, making sure his words would echo far beyond that room. This is why people don't trust politicians anymore. They say one thing today, another tomorrow, and the people pay the price for their lies. I'll tell you something. I don't care if you like me or not. I don't care if you criticise me. But at least I say what I mean. At least I stand by my words. You can't say the same, Prime Minister. The room went deathly quiet. It wasn't just an attack on Starmer anymore. It was a broader indictment of politics as usual. The fake smiles, the empty promises, the endless flip-flopping. Trump wasn't just exposing Starmer. He was exposing an entire system. And in that moment, the comparison between the two leaders couldn't have been clearer. Trump, firm, authentic, unapologetic. Starmer, flustered, desperate, collapsing under the weight of his own lies. And as if things couldn't get any worse for the Prime Minister, Trump saved his sharpest dagger for last. He leaned in, lowered his voice so it carried like a whisper amplified by silence, and said, "You didn't just lie to me, Keir. You lied to your people. And when a leader lies to their own people, their time is up." The cameras caught the exact second Starmer's composure cracked, his jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed, and for the first time he looked like a man who realised the truth. Not just that he had been humiliated, but that the humiliation would follow him, replayed endlessly, dissected ruthlessly, used against him for years to come. But the humiliation wasn't over. Trump still had one final move left, one that would not just expose Starmer, but completely shatter any illusion of strength he thought he had on the global stage. By this point, the room wasn't just tense. It was suffocating. Every word had been like a punch. Every revelation like a wound, and Keir Starmer was bleeding credibility in real time. But Trump wasn't satisfied with exposing lies. He wanted the world to see the truth for themselves. Undeniable and unforgettable. Trump leaned back, his posture relaxed, almost casual, as if he had already won. Then he dropped the final hammer. You want to talk about leadership, but you say you stand for democracy, for freedom, for honesty. But let me ask you, Prime Minister, what's the What's democratic about arresting people for Facebook posts? What's free about silencing dissent? What's honest about praising men like Churchill when it suits you, then tearing them down when it doesn't? You lied to my face, you lied to your people, and worst of all, you lied to yourself. The words hit harder than anything before. They weren't shouted, they weren't delivered with theatrics, they were calm, steady, lethal. And that's what made them devastating. Cameras zoomed in on Starmer, and what they captured was political history in the making. The look of a leader crumbling, his facade shattering, his legacy being rewritten in real time. Then came the moment that sealed it forever. Trump turned directly to the cameras, bypassing Starmer entirely, and spoke not to the politicians in the room, but to the people watching around the world. This is why freedom matters. Because without it, you get leaders who punish their citizens for opinions. Without it, you get politicians who smile in your face while stabbing you in the back. Without it, you get lies, and the people deserve better than lies. The silence was deafening. Starmer sat frozen, caught between fury and humiliation, his face tight with frustration he couldn't hide. He tried to respond, but nothing came out, not a word. The cameras caught him opening his mouth, then closing it again. The image of a man out of answers, out of strength, out of a time. It was in that silence that the damage was done, because sometimes the most powerful destruction isn't in what's said. It's in what can't be said. Trump had forced Starmer into that silence, and the whole world had seen it. Commentators would later call it the most humiliating moment of Starmer's career. Analysts described it as a political execution carried out live. Conservative opponents in the UK began celebrating before the meeting was even over, already planning how to plaster the footage across campaign ads. And in America, Trump supporters roared with approval, seeing their leader once again dominate the world stage with unshakable confidence. Starmer, meanwhile, walked out of that room a different man than the one who had walked in. He had come seeking legitimacy, hoping to prove himself as a global statesman. Instead, he left branded as a liar, his contradictions laid bare, his credibility shattered, and no amount of spin or press releases could undo what the cameras had already captured. Trump, on the other hand, walked out unbothered, unshaken, even triumphant. He didn't need to gloat. He didn't need to say another word. The images told the story. One leader, calm, authentic, commanding. The other broken, exposed and desperate. The fallout was immediate. British voters began questioning if this was really the leader they wanted representing them. On the world stage, Labour Party members whispered about regrets, wondering if they had chosen the wrong man to lead them into the future. And in Washington, foreign policy experts admitted what the footage made painfully clear. Trump had set a new standard. He would not play by the old diplomatic rules. He would call out lies, contradictions, and weakness wherever he found them. And he would do it live. And that's why this moment matters, because it wasn't just a confrontation between two leaders. It was a turning point, a warning to every politician who thinks they can lie with a smile and escape accountability. A reminder that in the age of cameras and instant replay, every contradiction, every false word, every dipperette flip-flop will be exposed. Trump's words will echo long after the meeting ended. You lied to my face. 4 words that didn't just humiliate a prime minister. They reshaped the conversation about leadership, truth and freedom across the Western world. And the question now is one that every voter on both sides of the Atlantic will have to answer. Do you want leaders who lie to your face, or leaders who call out the lies no matter how uncomfortable it gets?